Hishi. My question is in relation to the National Review Panel and its abject failure to complete and publish a report in a timely and efficient manner in relation to the systematic rape of 3 young children. When the court case in relation to these crimes concluded, Keith Burke was convicted of 23 of 39 sample charges of rape and buggery perpetrated on the 3 children over a prolonged period of time between 2003 and 7. Now, significantly, we know all of this, not from any internal examination by Tussler, the health executive, but because of Primetime Investigates, and because the children, now young adults, were forced to give evidence when Mr Burke pleaded not guilty. Consequent on the RTE programme, which has now become a familiar theme in the Dáil, which is a significant phenomenon of itself, questions were raised by myself and other TDs, and many fine words were used, including courageous and brave in relation to the children, now young women, and appalling and shocking in relation to the crimes. You yourself, Taoiseach, commended the bravery of Rachel, Sarah and Amy in telling their stories, and you said it would help others to come forward. They were fine words, but outside of those, the reality has been confusion, obfuscation and delay. Indeed, Taoiseach, your approach to date has not only added to the confusion, but you are actively standing over a system that is failing the young women and is utterly unaccountable. In one of your replies, you talked about an independent investigation will commence. Then you told us it had commenced. Then you told us it was nearing completion. And then you told us that the fact that there was a criminal trial in train that impeded the investigation. That latter point, of course, is completely unacceptable, and that was pointed out by HIQA in a report commissioned by Minister Sapone, which said clearly it is imperative that TUSLA ensures and does not allow a criminal investigation to impede its statutory duty to protect and safeguard children. 2.5 years later, we have no report, despite assurances that it was going to be reported in October and then November. You are now, as a government, standing over a review mechanism which, using the most benign interpretation, is tardy and inefficient. A more realistic and honest view is that the situation is actually perpetuating the abuse suffered by the children. My question is, when will the report be published? What is the reason for the delay? And before you answer, Taoiseach, I would ask you to make your reply in the context of what a former chairperson of United Nations Human Rights Committee said. It is time that the Irish state stopped its automatic response to every scandal, first to deny, then delay, then lie, then cover up, and eventually, if forced, throw some money at it and hope it will go away. Please answer my direct question directly.
Thanks very much, Deputy. And I know this is a very important issue, and I know it's one that you've taken a deep and genuine interest in. It wasn't one that I anticipated would come up today, so unfortunately I don't have an up-to-date note on this particular matter and haven't had a chance to speak to Minister Zappone about it. And I know there's absolutely no requirement for deputies to give us any advance notice of the questions that are raised, but we do get it on occasion, and it does at least allow me to get an up-to-date note. I will certainly check with Minister Zappone as to what the reasons are as to why that report can't be published. But I do understand that sometimes reports can't be published for good reasons, either because there is a criminal investigation or criminal trial underway, and nobody wants to do anything that might cause a criminal trial to collapse, or a prosecution to fail as a result of information being put in the public domain that a defendant could use in order to get acquitted or bring a trial down. And also sometimes people can take a case against a report being published and have it injuncted. So, you know, there are often reasons why reports can't be published, and they can be good ones. It's not necessarily because somebody doesn't want them to be published. I am told that on Monday last, TUSLA did publish its 2017 annual report of the National Review Panel, and it also published 5 individual case reviews regarding children and young people who sadly died in care or in aftercare, or who were known to the Child Protection Services. and each of those represents a tragedy for the children and young people involved and their families and those who cared for them. But I think this report, which was their annual report from 2017, doesn't cover the cases that you're raising today.
Connolly.
Perhaps a dignified silence for your 3 minutes might have been a better response. An independent review panel was set up to report on the systematic rape of 3 young children. Those adults came forward and said on a television programme and subsequently that they wanted an independent commission of inquiry. They said they wondered why they had come forward. It is entirely unacceptable as Taoiseach of the country to stand up in the manner that you have stood up and quote inane quotes from reports. You have a duty as a Taoiseach to ensure that the system is accountable. You cannot do a Pontius Pilate and wash your hands of it. It has been raised many times in this. You are fully familiar with the case and you are fully familiar with the independent review mechanism. At this point, I have to ask serious questions as to the independence of that review panel, why it has not communicated with you as Taoiseach to tell you why there's a delay. Is there an absence of resources, an absence of staff? What is the problem? There's an absolute duty on you to these 3 children to tell them that their suffering was not in vain. Thank you, Ceann Comhairle.
Ceann Comhairle, I think perhaps the appropriate course of action for me would be to communicate with Minister Zappone and to ask her to provide you with an updated position. I don't want to insult you or anger you any further by giving a different response to that. So what I will do, and I commit to do this, is asking Minister Zappone to provide an update to the Deputy as to where we stand with this particular tragic case.